Possible, and I won't go on for long. So the topic that I've been given to speak is on youth and politics, and in the context of Northeast India. So looking at the audience, I was thinking of simplifying it a bit, but often, as is the case, simplifying is the most difficult part. So if things get a bit confusing, then I apologize in advance. So when we talk about, let me just straight away jump to the topic itself, like Northeast and youth and politics. So when it comes to Northeast as a land, we know that it's very precariously placed in terms of building up this its position in the idea of India. It's very it's placed in a very confusing part, and we are neither here nor there. And when it comes to this whole idea of India, or our land, or let's say our belongingness, we are often put in a position where even our histories, our cultures and stories have often been subsumed in this nation building process, that our stories have been appropriated by some others, and this often makes us question where we are in this position. So then this ultimately for us, a lot of us from the Northeast, it often leads to this crisis of belongingness. There's always a paradox, leading up to the question of where we belong. Do we belong to the land of our ancestors, our ancestors who looked after our land and protected them, or do we belong more to these urban scapes and cities and towns which has shaped our education, our outlook, and even our futures? So somehow a lot of young people, a lot of us, we feel uprooted, from our own lands, and are often forced to look for avenues, where we can survive with a set of skills. But these skills are often very, how do I say it, alienated, from our own systems, or from our own traditions, from our very own land. If you look at even the education systems in some of our towns and cities, there is not so much for us, but it's more for the others. We don't find our histories in our textbooks, we don't find our stories in our textbooks. So there's sometimes a sense of alienation in that sense. And within this confusion and haze of trying to understand this belongingness or where we are, we often come across a set of problems, a series of overlapping contestations in terms of self-determination, like whom does this land actually belong to? Some may say it belongs to, let's say the case of a slightly controversial case, like in the case of Manipur. There are so many contestations over land, over identity, over indigeneity. So we have to often ask, where do we as young people, where do we place ourselves in this series of movements, series of struggles? Where are we? And of course, I know that I'm asking too many questions instead of making this into a talk, but I think it is very necessary that we ask ourselves questions, we give ourselves time to introspect, time to think, and mull over all these difficult and uncomfortable questions. Because I think we need to move away from these very rigid structures that has been placed upon us, and actually question where we are and what we're doing and where do we belong and things like that, and not just be accepting things that have been handed down to us or made to just parroted around. So coming back to those questions, one major question that irks, and also not just irks, but that has been very much part of our being and existence, is this question of identity. So who are we, and what position do we have in the society, and how what do our identity make us, basically. So in terms of politics, in terms of real politics, so to speak, a lot of people use this thing of identity politics over, over basic necessities. The idea that, my identity and my sense of belonging to a certain community, supersedes all other aspects of my being. And I think this is something that is very wrong, and we need to try to review that. Because, of course, we have to understand that identity is a basic integral part of, being a human being. But that should not, supersede all other identities, because being part of a community or being part of so-and-so, it's not just the only identity we have. Like if I give an example of myself, I belong to the Meitei community, so that is also part of my identity. But at the same time, I'm also a woman, so that is also part of my identity. At the same time, I am a daughter. That is also part of my identity. So there are so many overlaps of identities, and and we are basically a multiplicity of all these things. And we have to understand that identities are not fixed in that sense, no? It has to be played out according to the situation, according to the context. So when our, let's say, more emotional part of the psyche is being played over by certain politically motivated individuals, our own basic rights to things which are very much necessitated for our well-being, for our daily needs, like basic things like education and healthcare and all these things, they get sidelined in this whole drama that is being played out over identity politics. So we need to focus more on things like things which are more tangible, like healthcare and education, and of course be proud of our own identities, our own selves, but focus more on the. So yeah, I usually don't like talking all alone. I wish you guys could also ask questions, but maybe that can be done after I finish talking around. So one of the questions that usually come up to me and a lot of young people perceive is that politics is negative, and a lot of us say that I don't want to get involved in politics. I am apolitical. Politics is for it has a very negative connotation in a lot of terms, and we have to understand why it has this negative connotation. I think primarily it has to do because politics involves a lot of manipulation, and then there's of course this idea that it's a space, it's a power structure that has been captured by a few elites, and then these are very rigid power structures, and we don't have a place in these structures where we can voice our opinion, where we can present our views. And there is usually, even in the current political scenario that we're seeing across the country, in Manipur also and across Northeast, is that there is not so much room for dissenting voices or criticism, and therefore there is a lot of angst among the young people, among the youth, because we are never given this place to table our grievances, our issues and things like that. And usually we are sidelined, right? So when we talk about the whole negative connotations of politics and all, we have to also ask ourselves, can we really escape politics? Can we, really do away with politics? Not really, because when we're thinking of politics, we think mostly in terms of the whole electoral idea of politics, where it's just voting and electing a representative and things like that. But politics is actually much more beyond that. Even our day-to-day lives, even our things that happen very mundanely, everything is being governed by politics in that sense. Like even the price we pay for a bottle of mineral water, that is being governed by politics. Even the price or a taxi fare from Ukhrul to Imphal, that is also politics. So all these policies, all these things that go around in our life is part of politics. And politics is not just the electoral politics that happens, that happened just recently also with all these Lok Sabha elections and things like that. So our role in this whole thing is that we need to make our voices heard. We need to be there when policies are being made for us. We should always follow this dictum that nothing about us without us. We need to be there in the decision-making tables. And there's this interesting quote that I remember from one of the congresswomen in US. Her name is Shirley Chisholm. She's a black woman, and she used to say that if you're not given a seat in the negotiating table, bring a folding chair. So you need to make ways. Sometimes we need to do, push and shove sort of a technique. We need to adapt, we need to adjust in order to make our voices heard. There's this whole struggle for our voices to be heard. That itself is politics. Yeah, I have to actually write down all these points because there are so many things going in my brain when it comes to giving a talk about, such a sort of serious topic. So yeah, I was talking about not having room for dissent, not having this platform for things for us to discuss. And so, spaces for youth, often we find that there is a lack of spaces or platform for the young people to voice, our opinion, or even to develop a healthy atmosphere where we can debate issues and things like that. And we often find that these spaces are usually captured by the political elites or even certain, pressure groups. So we don't find safe spaces to discuss things openly, to have a free and frank debate about certain things, the pros and cons of things, and sometimes it feels that our voices have been muffled a lot. So when I was I had gone to Mizoram for an interaction program with the youth in Aizawl, and they had this structure which was very, very effective as well as interesting. They had a cafe or a restaurant where all the young people would come together after school or after the tuition hours, and they used to discuss things. They used to discuss like health issues, and so it was basically a very informal structure where they would have psychosocial support for each other. So in a place like Manipur, in a place like Ukhrul, in a place like Imphal, and all these places, I think there is a strong need to have all these informal, support structures, and also, of course, institutionalized approaches to dealing with, the youth issues. The state of democracy these days in India is so unhealthy that, there is a lot of curbing on freedom of speech and all these things. So all the more reasons to have platforms where we can have healthy debates, healthy criticisms, and the spirit of respecting each other's opinion. And in terms of that, I think there is also a strong need to restructure politics, restructure how, like I said before, when we talk of politics, we need to look beyond just the electoral politics, and we also need to move away from this very unhealthy practice of ethno-religious politics, like pitching one community against the other, and basically the whole divide and rule policy. So it needs to be focused more on issue-based things which affects all of us, and it's not let's take the example of climate change. When we talk about climate change, when we talk about environmental issues, these are political issues, and these are issues which are not going to stop just because you have a boundary here, or be like it's not going to affect you because I belong to a certain community or I belong to a certain section of the society. It's not like that. Climate change is going to affect all of us. So all the more need for us to come together and rally around a cause like that. So when I talk about things like restructuring politics, we as citizens, we as young people, we as human beings, we also need to establish, and press for accountability to all the elected representatives and the governments and, people who are involved in, the basic governance of a state, and also ensure there is transparency. And another, of course, it may not be institutionalized, but what we can do is we can also have certain groups which we can give, report cards for elected members of our, legislative assemblies or, like the ADCs. And according to the report card, these should be made public, and how much, how much work has that person done or not. And this could be compared when the elections come around. So we need to basically establish accountability, like if we have elected a certain person, we need to make sure that they work for the people and they work for the society. So that's about restructuring politics. And coming more to the youth issues, whenever people talk about youth issues, the only thing that I usually hear is unemployment, because that's a very, it's almost like a catchphrase that is used around an election. When it's youth, then there's unemployment. But I think we also need to look into this whole crisis of unemployment in the, in a more comprehensive manner. And the reason why there's a lot of unemployment is also because of corruption at the end of the day, I mean, this is like an open secret that government jobs are being sold, and then you need to sell off your land to, even get a, meager job. So these sort of a thing. So we need to look beyond things like government jobs. We need to, make ourselves be sustainable. Of course, it's easier said than done, but we need to look beyond government jobs. And some of the youth issues that are mostly neglected and doesn't become an agenda talking point for most of the political parties is also this issue about healthcare. Considering we live in a highly conflict-affected areas in the Northeast as a whole, there is a lot of cases of depression, there's a lot of cases of abuse, there's a lot of cases of addiction, and those cases are very high in this region. And the fact that even drug addiction is seen like a social taboo, but not even understanding the basic root causes behind that, and just treating the disease very symptomatically and not properly, that needs to be reviewed, that needs to be comprehensively tackled by the society as a whole and not just brushed away. So healthcare system is something that really needs to be pressed upon for the young people. And having, like I said before, like a proper psychosocial support system for the young people. You can't just, a lot of us feel left out, a lot of us don't know where to go, and the cases of depression and, even like teenage suicides and all, that has been happening a lot in our area. And these are things that are just brushed under the carpet because it's not such a nice topic for the family to discuss. But until and unless we discuss these things, the problem is not just going to, disappear overnight. So when we talk about youth issues, it needs to have a more comprehensive approach and not just a very tokenist approach where, during election people just say, I'll give you job, I'll give you this, that and all. So it needs to be comprehensive. And I won't take long, I'm pretty much getting to the end of the talk. The idea of, Northeast governance and politics. I mean, as we all know, like I said before, it is also very strategically located, the Northeast, in terms of geopolitics. We have China there, we have Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar. So we're basically surrounded by a lot of, international boundaries. And of course, the Indian government would view it as a very strategically placed area. So there have been many, analysis that they are purposefully making the Northeast a little more backward and underdeveloped so that, we, depend on them. And that has been the case in most of the, governments in the Northeast. The fact that we have to depend on the center's fund and, so that they dole out funds for our development. And because of this practice also, a lot of the states in Northeast are seen as incapable of governance, incapable of having our own system, having our own, like basically being very bad at governing people. And of course that also has a lot to do with the whole idea of resource curse where, of course our land is blessed with a lot of good resources, be it water, minerals and things like that, but that becomes a curse because it gives more opportunity for people to exploit us. So there are many issues